Hello, welcome to Saturday night reading sprints. I don't normally do this on a Saturday, but I've got loads of editing to do, and I was asking Elizabeth something else. And I was like, actually, let's do some sprints together. So I asked if you would come on, and thank you so much for doing it because it's lovely to chat to you and not have to talk to myself on sprints.
Yeah, no, these are great. It's been a really big help.
And it's really strange to see your like daylight in the background. I still don't get used to that.
Right.
And it's dark night here. And I was just saying to Elizabeth before we came on, I don't know where you are, but the fireworks are booming outside my window. We did some very tame fireworks at my dad's house earlier that was sort of 3-year-old appropriate. And even then, like the later ones, he got a little bit scared. And he said, I never want to see fireworks again. I was like, you might want to see them again, maybe another year. Let's not just write them off now.
Yeah.
So before we came on, we were just saying that Elizabeth is doing some writing tonight with us. So is this something, I feel like, did you say you've written in the past but not done it for a while, or just been thinking about it in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot of creative writing when I was younger, and then just adulthood and other things, and I was, in a really stressful job for quite a while. So it kind of took up all of my brain bandwidth, so it just was not happening. So my adult job, I guess you would say, has changed, and it's allowed me to spend more time on my projects that fill my cup. And I'm like, I really, really want to get back into writing again because I've had all of these ideas bouncing around in my head for literal years. And I'm like, if I don't get over myself and actually start to like write it down, then it's not going to happen. So
I was exactly the same. So I was a teacher from the age of 21 to 31, and I sort of tried writing a bit during that time, but I found I could only write during the school holidays because term time was so intense.
yeah.
So I couldn't kind of build any momentum because I'd be writing for maybe 2 weeks while I was off school, and then back at school for 6 to 8 weeks, and I just lost it all. So when I moved from teaching to consulting, that was when I started writing Mina and the Cult. I think I started that job 2016, and I basically started writing it straight away. It
Oh,
just been
wow.
there. We went to New Orleans in 2012, and I think, like you, ideas that it could be had been sort of sifting around my brain for a while, and then it was sort of at that time that I really started thinking about the characters, and that's when the story kind of took shape. So yeah, I think writing is really hard to do if you've got, I don't know how people who've got really stressful day jobs, like some of my friends have full-time, quite intense day jobs. Like I don't know how they also write, because to me both, I need, like you said, I only have so much bandwidth, and I feel like my day job isn't stressful.
Yeah.
So I can manage on an evening to sit down and do something. So have you decided on an idea, or is this the point where you're trying to figure out
So
which
I've
one to
got a
go with?
few. So I think I've mentioned before on my channel, I probably mentioned on sprints here too, that I want to write a book that is fiction, but it revolves around like my experiences growing up in a haunted house and like actually wind that into a story. So I've been kind of working on that for a while. And then there's a short story actually that just popped into my head the other day. So there's that I just, even just the outline, need to get down on paper so then I don't forget it. And then, but the one that I'm mainly focusing on and the one that I'm working on today, and I don't think I've actually spoken about this before, but I've had it in the back of my mind that I really want to start a podcast. And I mean, Canada is a large place and it's fairly old, especially where I'm from out east. So I'd like to see if I can get a podcast off the ground that's like about Canadian hauntings, Canadian spooky stories.
That sounds cool. There's lots
Yeah.
of folklore, and I suppose you can be quite broad, can't you? Or you can be narrow, like you can go the haunting route, or you can kind of go like cryptids and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So I think probably starting out with the haunted route, but I mean, we have here, I don't know if you've heard about it, but we have Ogopogo here, which is kind of like our version of the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, okay,
We
no,
have like all of those myths and legends and stuff, and a lot of people don't know about it. And I mean, two of my loves in my life are books, which I already have my booktube channel. So I'm like, I really need to get this other part out of my head and onto paper.
that sounds really fun. So is it, are you thinking that you're going to do some fiction linked to that as well, or?
Yes, yeah. So there's a few ideas bouncing around. So I've got to try to not get started on too many things at one time. So I'm like, okay, let's see if we can get the podcast idea going and see kind of where that goes out to in the universe.
I always say that at this point, like early on, when you're trying to figure out what you want to write and like writing your first book, like if it's something you're thinking about trying to get published, you can just kind of take your time, because as soon as you're on that treadmill of write another book, write another book, write another book, you don't have all the time to explore. And I think as soon as you sort of get published, if you're not careful, you can end up on a path of like, this is the genre you write now. And luckily I ended up on the right path. But I think some people can end up, it's like, oh, I'm going to try writing a romance, see what happens. And that takes off. And they're like, oh, I write romance now. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it is good to figure out like kind of what your brand will be and who you want, what you want right now. And you can obviously change, like people like V Schwab, like she writes such a breadth and range of things, like from supervillains to high fantasy to everything in between.
Well, and I think my biggest thing is trying to get over myself and my own insecurities, like even just with the way my brain works and my mental illnesses that I live with. Even with my booktube, I'm like, nobody likes this. Why do I do that? So it's all that negative self-talk. And I'm trying to train myself to not listen to that and actually just concentrate on what it is that I want to do.
I think it's really common for authors actually, like the imposter syndrome. Like every single thing I write, I really want it to be the best thing I've written. So I think I hold myself to a really high standard that at some point isn't going to, I'm not necessarily going to improve every book I write forever. And like say Stephen King, even authors that I think are amazing and completely prolific, there'll be books that they don't think are as great, and there'll be books that readers don't think are as great. And I think you have got to become like, you've got to create a bit of a shell around yourself and like know that your book isn't you. And that's really hard sometimes, because you know you've created that thing. If somebody disses it, you're like, oh, that's me personally being attacked, and it isn't that at all.
Yeah.
And it often just comes down to personal preference. Like with the book club, it's really interesting listening to people talk, and like things that they loved, I was underwhelmed by, or things that I loved, they absolutely loathed. Like sometimes every book can be completely polarizing. So I'm kind of trying to get used to that. That's my thing that I'm working on, and like not letting those thoughts. And I think the negative thoughts, I try and like, because I have similar things too, like trying to stop me from doing it. And I try and like use them to challenge myself. And it's like, this scene that I'm writing isn't good. And it's like, well, put that aside for now. Keep that for when I'm editing, because that will be helpful when I'm editing, saying, come on, you can do better, you can do better. But it doesn't help you to draft. That little voice is not helpful. When you're drafting, that little voice can shut you down. You've got to kind of get the draft down. Because somebody, Catherine Foxfield, recently, I know lots of people have said it, but she said on a panel I did with her, you can't edit an empty page. And I was like,
exactly.
Yes, you're right. You've got to write something. And then, but yeah, it is hard. You're not alone. I talked to a lot of authors about this, and I think a lot of authors are quite kind of like maybe introverted extroverts, or have some extroverted qualities, but often have quite introverted and quite inner facing world, like a very introspective people who do a lot of thinking and creating, because that's, you know, what we do. So I think that can lead to some good spirals and some like not so good spirals.
Not so good ones. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. We are there. So I am at quite late stages of editing Mina and the Cult. It's had a structural edit, which I'm kind of still working on, because it's going to go to copy edits, like the more fine-tuning edits next week. Next week. Yeah.
My goodness.
So yeah, a week on Monday. So I have just over a week. And I really want it to be as polished as possible, because I still have a chance to fix some things after then, but not really big things. So if there's anything big, I need to do it now, because I don't think the publisher likes it if you kind of start chopping and changing big stuff late on. So that's my goal. I'm working really, really hard at trying to get these done. And also, as a little treat to myself, I don't know, have you read any Rachel Harrison?
No, I haven't. I've heard of her books many, many times on BookTube, but I've never actually read one.
Yeah, they come up a lot. And actually, this is the newest one, so I haven't heard as much about it. But I just picked this up in Forbidden Planet because it was signed. I was like, oh, signed. I want that. And it's for, I'd say they're slightly longer than short stories, slightly shorter than novellas, so I don't really know what they are. But they're all kind of linked to women and feminism and different stuff that, like, I don't know whether the author's experienced or just the female characters that she's chosen have experienced. So it's things like dealing with like bereavement and and
Oh,
the one I'm
wow.
on, it's quite hard for me to read actually because it's a bit one of my pressure points. So a family member has died, and a girl's kind of gone back home to sort of spend time with her remaining family. So it's quite dark, that one. But then there's a lighter one where a girl goes to a bachelorette party and she starts to realize that something weird is afoot and they're planning something really wild for the last night of the bachelorette. And I won't spoil it, but it's really fun. And then there's one where a girl buys a magic 8 ball and starts using it to make her decisions. She's really indecisive and it starts telling her to do stuff. And she starts
I like that.
so yeah, so they go from being like quite like visceral and kind of dark to like being a bit lighter and funnier, and the writing is just great. You know, some authors are just really easy to read, like the characters and the voice just immediately grabs you. This is really good so far, and it's great.
I'm gonna have to put it on my list. Yeah, I like the
Yeah,
sound.
I would do. It's definitely good because at the moment I'm just struggling to read a full novel at any speed because I'm so busy. I'm
Yeah.
finding I can just read a few pages of this and cope. So that's my treat. If I do manage to write lots, I'm going to read a little bit more of this because I think I've got. It's really short. It's 180 pages, I think, and I think I've only got about 30 pages to go. So it'd be nice if I could finish this tonight as well.
Yeah.
So let's see what the people in the comments are doing, and then we can go to the first sprint. I'm excited. I want to hear what you've done and how you've gotten after the first one. I hope we have a good, productive write and edit. Hello.
Christine.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I love that book. I don't know whether you've read any Laura Wood, Elizabeth.
No.
She wrote a beautiful book called Sky Painted Gold that was set, I think, in like, I want to say 1920s, like Gatsby era. And it's a girl who goes to stay she makes friends with this like really rich, mysterious family, and she spends quite a lot of time with them over kind of a dreamy summer and falls for like the son of the family. And it's just, she writes these books that are really kind of sweet and lovely quite a lot of the time. But The Agency for Scandal is a bit meatier. It's about kind of a spy agency that if particularly women have been wronged and kind of the legal systems let them down, they sort of offer services for them. So it's got the lovely romantic side as well, but it's got this cool spy element that's really great. And I think that she's writing a sequel. But I've just read her adult debut too, and it's a really fun, like cozy romance that's quite sexy too. It's really good. She's great. No horror in sight, but really, really good. Hi.
Hi.
I see lots of authors in the chat tonight. I feel like the NaNoWriMo spirit is gripping people. I've never managed to do it because I'm always editing in November for some reason. Have you ever, I don't suppose you've probably tried it, Elizabeth, if you were kind of younger last time you were writing.
Yeah, no. And I mean, you know, I've never been published. My writing was kind of usually for school or whatever, but never really tried.
It's good. I mean, I find that I know a lot of people who've written like whole novels in November, like using the daily word counts and stuff, but I want to try it. I've just not managed. Hopefully next year. I see this every year. Next year I won't be editing in November. I will. It'll happen again. Yeah,
It
that's
does
really
help. And I'm way further ahead than I used to be, but yeah, our brains tell us lies and it is exhausting. It's every day, you know, for people that live with struggles, right?
Yeah, I completely understand. I've heard that one's great as well. It does seem that her books are very like women-centered and feminist and dealing with issues that kind of feel relatable, which is quite refreshing in horror, actually. I just finished the Creature feature, you know, the Amazon like shorts that Grady Hendrix has written. Is it called Creature feature? Like Grady Hendrix has written one, Paul Tremblay's written one. They're like novellas.
How come I haven't heard of these?
I think it's called Creature Feature. I'm not questioning myself. Please, somebody in the comments tell me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so it was. If you look it up on Amazon, I'm sure it'll come up. Grady Hendrix's one was really good. Somebody else I really like wrote one. Oh, Joe Hill's was really creepy.
Oh, okay.
So I've just read 6 of them in a row, all written by men, which, you know, fine. But I did just feel like the male lens, although there were some female characters, like the last one, I enjoyed it, but I did feel like it was, I don't have a problem about reading stuff from a male perspective. But after reading 6 in a row, I was like, come on,
Yeah.
it would have been nice to have some female voices in there too.
Yes.
I think some of them were from diverse backgrounds, but I noticed lack of women. It was interesting. And especially reading Rachel Harrison alongside them, I was like, oh, this could have been a voice that could have been adding something different to this mix.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I enjoyed them all. Okay, so Kindle, yeah, so I got them on I don't have Kindle Unlimited, but I have Amazon Prime, and I think that they're on like a Prime deal thing where you can get
Oh,
them for
okay.
free as well. Yeah. I thought it was Joe Hill.
Joe
I
Hill,
was questioning
yeah.
myself. I was like, is it Stephen Graham Jones? I don't think it is. I think Stephen Graham Jones is in another anthology I've just bought, which is like a Winter Solstice one, I think. That sounds fun. Josh Malerman, thank you. I was really trying to think of all the authors. You see, you know what's what. I am terrible at remembering stuff like that, even when I've just read it. But they've been good too, because I've been struggling with the whole novel thing, just because I haven't had much time. If I've been reading a little bit on an evening on my Kindle, I can read one of those in like an hour and feel like I've read a whole book because it's so short. Yeah, they're good fun and free through lots of methods. I'm not sure why. Like, I don't know how we're getting like free Grady Hendrix and Joe Hill and Paul Tremblay
Right.
stuff.
It's because
But
they're
I'm not.
jacking up the prices of all their other books.
Probably. Do you know, it's some clever marketing thing. Like, here's some short free thing. Go and buy all of our other books. Okay, interesting.
Oh, okay.
I need to read more Riley Sager. Because if I'm getting a more balanced perspective there, that sounds good.
Have you read the new one? The only one left, I think it's called.
No, I
Oh,
haven't. Is it
so
good?
good. It's really
Okay.
good. He's kind of a hit or miss for me, but this one was really, really good.
See, I read The Final Girls, I think. Was that his first
So did
book?
I.
Yeah. I
I
thought it
believe
was,
it was that one. And it
yeah,
was
I thought it was okay. I quite enjoyed it, but if I remember right, I think I found it a bit predictable, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I can enjoy a book and predict it, but I think I just sort of thought it was decent at the time and then didn't pick any others up. And I think from what people have said about the more recent ones, it sounds like there's quite a lot. Like, is there a sort of haunted housey feel one?
yeah, there was Lock Every Door and oh crap, I can't remember the name of the other one. But those were more like haunted house sort of feels.
Yeah.
But this one, um, it's like this nurse who goes in to care for this old lady, and all of these secrets about this house and about the old lady and everything get revealed, and she has a past herself, so it's like this dual timeline sort of thing. And it blew me away. Actually, I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this one. I didn't predict it. I predicted a couple of little things, but not where it went.
That sounds awesome. It sounds different too. I love it when I hear a blurb for a book and I'm like, oh, that sounds like nothing I've read. That's always really refreshing. Um, yeah, I need to read more, Caroline. You know, both of you are making me think. I do own a couple of others, I think. I don't remember which ones. There was one about, is there one about a character getting into a car or something like that, which I know sounds super generic, like a hitchhiking type scenario or something,
I'm
or
not
like
sure.
riding along and then it's something, there's like a twist if they don't expect who they're with or something like that. I don't know. And I remember that one was really polarizing. So I didn't pick that one up. But yeah, I do. I think that might be one of the authors I try. I'm going to try and have a list of authors that I want to kind of read next year. Rachel Harrison's definitely on there.
Survive the Night. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Caroline. I knew we need to have somebody who loves Riley Sager in the chat to keep me honest, because I'm like you're seeing, I'm butchering everybody's author names and titles tonight. I'm tired already and I haven't even started writing yet. Okay, let's go to the first sprint. We're going to do 40 minutes, 40 minutes, and 30 minutes. If you want to head out, I know this is like middle of the day for you, Elizabeth, if you need to go and do other stuff at any point, that's fine. If people want to dip in and out the comments, that is great too. Just let us know in the comments what you're doing, if you're reading or writing, if you want to ask us anything while we are here. And I'm going to start the timer now, so we'll see you on the other side.
You need to check email.
Hello. I wasn't quite prepared then, and I had like a little moment where I just like zoned out for a second. I got an email at the beginning of the sprints that I ended up having to reply to, and I did some editing, and then my mum was messaging me about various things for next year, like holidays and stuff. So I had a good sprint, but also I had a bit of a distracted one. How
I
about
had a
you?
really good one, so I'm pleased with that because sometimes, yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, or people are messaging, or whatever the situation is. That was good.
Yeah, I had one of those. I did manage to get there's a scene that I'd started rewriting, and actually I think I need to rewrite a previous one to make this one make sense. So I just left the scene that I was stuck on. I'm kind of feeling better about doing things like that. I'm just thinking I've got time, I'll come back to it. When I address the earlier scene, I need to address that one. So I carried on editing, and actually I had a few like good pages where I was like, oh, I don't need to edit this much. So I felt like I like got through a little bit after giving up when I got stuck. So what are you doing at the moment? Are you sort of plotting out and thinking through and figuring?
Well, right now, so I'm working on the podcast right now. So I'm working on. I started with my home province. So there's a little island off the edge of Newfoundland, which is also a small island, and it's known as Canada's X-Files Isle.
Okay.
It has all kinds of cool folklore and hauntings and tragedies and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm almost done with I guess you would say, the research portion.
Yeah,
So hoping to get at least that done today, and then I can actually start plotting out what I'm going to say, what the story will be.
that sounds really cool. So are you thinking like that it will be entirely based in, I say fact, but like it will be based on the existing stories? It won't be, you know, like the Black Tapes podcast. I don't know whether have you listened to that one?
Yeah. So
It's like fictionalized, isn't it? But like with some mythology woven in there.
yeah, so I was kind of stuck on which way I wanted to go, but I think for the podcast I want to just have it based in the folklore. But
Yeah,
then if I do kind of wind that out, because I mean, I got a lot of ideas from like Alex Bell's writing,
yeah,
Joseph Delaney's writing, where you take the folklore and you actually build a story around the
yeah.
folklore. So that might be another part to this project.
Yeah, I think for the podcast, hearing what you've said, it might get confusing because I've struggled that with the Mina books. I've tried not to add too many stories to the New Orleans mythology because I kind of it can get confusing. Like people want to research stuff, like there's certain stories that they're interested in.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be like, oh, that one doesn't exist. She made it up. So I've tried. I did think about doing that at some point, and also it became a bit convenient if I could just invent one that fit my
Yes.
purposes. I kind of wanted it to have to work to make stuff
Well,
fit.
and it's funny because along the lines and along my research, I mean, a lot of these stories are passed down by word of mouth, right?
Yeah,
They're narrated, and a lot of people in Newfoundland even still are illiterate, right? So it's all by word of mouth. So you have these conflicting sort of things where it's like, no, you're telling it wrong. It went this way.
yeah,
And so I think that's going to have to be something that I wind in there, kind of like a disclaimer where it's like, these stories have been told 100 times. They may differ in what you've learned or what you go and do your own research on. So,
yeah. I think the New Orleans ones are similar. Some of them there's actual documented evidence, like Delphine Lalaurie. Like there are, I think there's one newspaper reference or something like that from what I've seen, like saying that this is a person that existed who did horrible things. And then there's other stories where they're so ingrained in the culture that people 100% believe them. Like you said, tell different versions, but I couldn't find any like basis. And I did eventually get in touch with the New Orleans tour guide, and she said that basically a lot of the generations that could have given you those first-hand accounts now aren't alive anymore.
yeah.
So people that she'd talked to, like kind of older people in decades past, like aren't here anymore. So she felt that like there was a slight disconnect now where you could have actually gone to somebody and they say, oh, actually, I read it in this paper, I remember this happening. And those people aren't alive anymore, which I found kind of sad actually, that like when my grandparents passed away, obviously it was super sad, but also there was that added like loss of stories and knowledge and like
Yes.
generation that like were alive during the Second World War. Like, you know, I don't have, like, Nathan isn't going to hear those stories firsthand from them. Like, I'm trying to kind of keep them alive, and obviously not when he's 3, but like I'm telling him little things about them already because I want to kind of keep that going. So it is interesting, and I think that I've found tricky. I think that if you're doing it as a kind of like an academic talking about it, you can explain that interesting like situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's quite specific to that area, because I imagine in the United States and in Canada that there are pockets of sort of deprivation and illiteracy and where oral storytelling is more of a thing. And then there'll be others, like in LA, that's not going to be a thing probably anymore. I'm assuming there's pockets of deprivation.
Yeah, and
like,
the interesting thing about certain parts of Canada, and I mean, obviously I grew up out east, is like from where I come from, it's the oldest settlement in North America. It was founded in 1497.
oh, really? That's
But
really
it's
early.
but it's the youngest province. We didn't join Confederation until 1949. So what I was talking about earlier, where like out there, they very much are all about like Guy Fawkes Night and Bonfire Night, and we still have, very old English traditions. It's because like it really hasn't even been a province for that long when you think about it compared to the rest of the country. So the kind of
Yeah,
the
I was just
Celtic
doing the maths in my
mythology that
head.
came over, it kind of has its own unique makeup.
Yeah, and it's still in living memory for some people, I
For
guess.
some
Not
people,
many
yeah.
people now. But I think as soon as you've got like parents who've heard the stories, grandparents who are still telling the stories, that there's still that divide that I was saying, that divide that I'm now saying is happening in New Orleans and like with the Second World War, that divide isn't there now. Like there's still people that can, and actually there may be people that you can talk to about it that can give you some first-hand accounts, like whether
Yes.
you could actually interview them like and use extracts of what people are saying, or whether you could paraphrase. I found that super useful to talk to people in New Orleans, particularly for the Mina books. It's been amazingly useful to get first-hand accounts, and like
Well, and it's
I
so
message
easy to do
Kelsey who
that
lives there and ask her things like, how do people answer the phone? I asked her recently.
Yeah, no, and it's so easy now. I mean, because we have things like this that you can hop on and it's like a video call and you can tape it and edit it or like whatever you want to do, right? So like I have all of these ideas bouncing around in my head. So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what it is I want to do, how I want to tell the stories, and then how I want to build it out from there. And then, do I want to also open it up to if people have had their own experiences, like right into the show, like let me know what your own experiences have been in those areas.
That's super interesting, because again, you end up with this, some people will give you first-hand accounts, some people will give you reported accounts, some people will give you like family histories, some will give you kind of broader histories. And that's really exciting, actually. It'll be interesting to try and pick your way through it all and figure out like a path to tell a cohesive story.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited for you. I think you're doing it the right way, like planning it out. And because I know that some great podcasts and like great ideas can fizzle out because people haven't done this beforehand. Like they haven't figured out what is the trajectory of this thing. Like to what extent do you want to use other people? To what extent do you want to, keep it factual versus going?
Yeah, and I want to keep it quite tight in that now, and some people really like this style of podcast where it's just a couple of people on and they're kind of chatting and bantering and whatever. And I listen to those types of podcasts too, but for this specific one, I kind of want to keep it a little bit tight. Here's the story, probably just me telling it, having a couple of very structured interviews rather than just half-assed research and let's hop on and chat about it and just have banter.
I think that would work. I like, the chatting about them. I have on in the background if I'm driving or cleaning or something. But if it's like a really focused short, something you could get your teeth into, and I'd be sitting there making notes too. I'd be like, this is great. I'm getting story ideas from this. Like, that's when I'd want to treat it almost as like a piece of academia rather than,
yes,
hey, two friends having a chat. Yeah, that's very cool. Let's see how the people in the comments are doing, and then we can get to the next sprint. I think I'm going to turn my phone off at this point, and then I think I've finished all my important conversations. I need to just concentrate in this one. That's so exciting.
Excellent.
I know you wrote poetry as well. Have you got a theme for it, or is it a collection of lots of different stuff? I I kind of want to read more poetry, so that might be a good place for me to start. I own quite a few poetry books, and a lot of them have just sat there looking at me. Ooh, there's loads of people writing. This is exciting. I love writing. Exciting. Sorry about the rhyming, everyone. I like
Oh, I
that.
like this.
I like high stakes and familial, like Mina in the first book, was trying to prove her sister's innocence. That felt like it made it super high stakes for me, and I've tried to I've been fighting for that feeling ever since. So I definitely think that will work for you. I'm a bit like that. I always think I know it, and then sometimes as the story goes along, a lot of things change. Like I have a rough arc usually, but I get to a point where I can't see it until I'm writing it. Usually about halfway through the plotting, I just run out and I'm like, okay, I've got to just write it now and find out what this thing's about. So I get that. Ooh,
Hey,
that's a good title. I like it. Do you know anything about that, Elizabeth? That sounds cool.
no.
Already invested in that title. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, any ideas, just kind of store them somewhere that you'll remember and keep coming back to them. I think even at this point where I'm like meant to be in the far end stages of editing, I'm still like weaving things in and changing my mind because I just think of something better. So I think you definitely don't have to be pinned down at this point. Oh, I've heard lots of people like that book. Have you read it, Elizabeth?
I haven't. No, I've heard about it. I've heard about the series, but I've never read it.
Yeah, I don't know whether people have said it's more fantasy than I usually read, so I haven't like rushed to pick it up. But I'm not saying that I won't in the future. I think that sounds like you got your priorities in order, Sharon. That's good. I haven't properly watched Strictly, but the bits I see, it looks like the dancing looks beautiful, and I always think I'll watch it and then end up writing every Saturday night. We are talking about Elizabeth's Perspective podcast that she's working on, which definitely sounds like your thing, Ashlyn. So we'll make sure Elizabeth keeps us posted on that. Have you got an idea of when you might like to start airing, or is it just kind of making sure that you're ready?
Probably starting around the beginning of the year. So I also don't want to get too far into myself and be like, I need to have a dozen of these done before I start. Like, let's get the first couple done, get it out, and see what people think.
That sounds perfect because you can then adjust. I think if you do lots and lots, like I wouldn't want to write 12 Mina books and then release the first one. I kind of want to, I don't necessarily shape it based on what people say, but I sort of do at the same time, like, and how I feel about it. Like, I think you need to create a thing and like sit on it for a little while, and then you can see like how you feel about it and which bits you enjoyed, which bits didn't feel right, because you'll get into your rhythm with it, won't you? And like figure out what you enjoy. That sounds absolutely valid.
I mean, it's good, right?
Can I just say, I love the word crock pot. We say slow cooker, and it sounds so boring compared with crock pot.
We typically go with slow cooker here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. I think crock pot sounds more interesting. It sounds like something from a story. That sounds good. I haven't read The Poppy War.
I haven't either, no. It's a long one, though.
Yeah. Is it the same author as, I want to say Yellowface? Does that sound right? Rebecca Wang. RF. I think she might have used the neck like RF. Can't think of. Oh my gosh, what is the word for that? Like when you abbreviate your name. I'm so tired. I'm going to move on. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think it might be the same author who wrote Yellowface. Let's move on. No. Oh yes, I've heard of All Hallows. I do have that. I haven't read it yet. I haven't heard of Witch Hunting Whitby.
No, I haven't. No.
I know that Whitby has sort of an interesting, I don't know whether it's a history of witchcraft. There was a really popular book called The Whitby Witches by Robin Jarvis when I was a kid. I'd like to know actually whether that is like a real history of witchcraft or an invented one. But yeah, I'd be interested in that, Stephen, to know more. That is my region papers. Interesting.
Yeah. I think we have a couple of pagans on here. Sharon, myself, all the pagans unite.
Sharon might be an interesting person for you to talk to. I know that it's probably a different area of the world. I feel like you two would have lots in common. Making some connections in the comments there.
Love it.
I feel like Sharon knows something about everything. I need to pick your
Yeah.
brain at some point, Sharon, about all the different subject matters. Like casually, Sharon dropped in, I think it was last night, that she'd got a degree in was it ancient part of ancient history. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to you about that as well. Okay, that's interesting.
And Crock-Pot is kind of the brand name. It's kind of like Kleenex, right? It's a tissue, but
Yeah.
we all call it by the brand name.
Yeah, we do that with Blue Tack in the UK, like sticky tack. We call it Blue Tack. I see. I was
There
right.
you go. Yeah.
I think I almost said that. It's too late for me to be concise. Yes, thank you, everyone. I'm glad you all have better memories than I do. I've got Yellowface. That is the first one by that author. But I've heard that The Poppy War is really, really good. You're not that old, Sharon. And I just think, experienced and knowledgeable is a nicer way to put it. And I think Sharon's done more and lived more than like most people I know. So yeah, I feel like we could have some interesting discussions with Sharon that aren't to do with books. Let's just talk about Sharon at some point.
Absolutely. Should have her on someday.
Yeah, do you know what? I would like to do that actually. Like, let's talk about your life and the things that you know. So let's jump to another sprint. I'm just checking the time. Yeah, so we'll do 40 minutes and then have a chat, and then the last one will be 30 minutes. It's lovely to hear about what people are writing and reading, so let us know in the comments, and we will catch up with you afterwards. Bye. Hello. Sorry, I was not ready, but luckily I'm
I wasn't
practicing.
ready for that one either.
Quickly bringing up the kitty. I always think I've got time, like 3 minutes. I can write 5 paragraphs in that time, can't I? And then the time disappears and the kitty meows. So how did you get on during that one?
Good. So I think I'm getting close to the end of my research. I've got one more source to check on our next sprint. And then I think I'm calling it quits, because one thing that I have a tendency to do is like research and research and research, never actually write anything. So I don't want to fall into that hole.
Yeah, I work for an education company, and a lot of what I do is write resources, and it might be about a historical event or like, I don't know, like how something in the human body works. It could be anything. And after you've checked a certain number of sources, I'm like, okay, like if Britannica agree, the BBC agree, and 2 other sources, I'm going to say that this is true.
This is
But I bet it's
it. Yeah.
yeah, but it's harder, isn't it? Because I think, like, I mean, there is some disagreement. Like, I was doing a geography thing the other day, and I was so surprised at how much disagreement there was out there about this particular expedition. But I think you're in a similar situation, that there will be like nothing but disagreement. So because you're talking about stories, aren't you, in folklore?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like we said before, it's all handed down by word of mouth, and different areas are going to remember things differently, and different generations are going to remember things different. It's like a game of telephone, right? It all gets
Yeah,
distorted.
yeah, and I think that if you kind of make that part of the story that you're telling, like this is what people think, and you'll end up with stuff coming into your terminology, won't you? Like, allegedly, and
Yeah.
kind of hedging your bets a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear like you put the first thing you put together. It sounds like it's gonna be amazing. Oh, nice. I do really like it. I need to reread it actually, but it's so long that I always put it off.
It's intimidating. I've never actually read it, so
I think it's great. It's just one of those books like you probably know which scene I'm talking about, even if you haven't read it. There's a particular scene with the children that just should not be there.
it shouldn't be in there. And that kind of maybe that's part of my fear of like wanting to dive in, but I know it's there. I
It's
know it's
pretty
there.
small. I would say always check the content warnings, anyone. It's such a great book. It's just a shame that's there. And I can't even
Right.
say like, like some things it's like of the time. Like we were talking about the Morganville vampires earlier, and like a couple of ways things are described just haven't aged well. And I was like the way that some of the teenage girls are described, and like the behavior that they should accept as normal at parties and stuff seems a bit like skewed. But I do remember things like from the 90s being a bit that way, whereas I think that like I can't mention any time period where that was
It wouldn't have been accepted.
acceptable.
It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I just like it isn't justifiable in any way.
No.
So I can't. The only thing I can kind of think in his favor is like, was there a lapse of like kind of forgetting how old these children were? Like at some point in the editing process, like when you can age characters up and down.
Yeah.
It seems to me like something where at some point these were like kids in their late teens, and they've been like aged down, and then like something's been left in there that shouldn't have been. That's the only thing I can think, because it just seems so logical.
Well, and you would think that even like the editors or the publishers would be like,
Yeah,
really, dude?
I mean, it's in like, is it towards the end? I think of a really long book. Maybe somebody at some point has let that go. I'd love to read actually a new edition and see if it's still there.
If it's in there, yeah.
Because I'd like to think no, but who knows at this point.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for joining us. Anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I'm really sorry. Read the discourse about it if you want to. There is a scene. There's a scene, which, as a parent of a young child, I just don't think should be in the book. Hi, Jodie. Elizabeth, the excitement at seeing you on screen. Nice to get an exclamation mark. I'm good. I'm excited to hear what everyone thinks of Salem's Lot. Have you read that one, Elizabeth?
I haven't. No, it's on my to-do. So I'm probably going to skip the show tomorrow just because I'm like, I don't want any spoilers, but I know it's one of the good ones. I know it's one of his better ones.
It is. It's quite slow burn, and then when it picks up, it like really picks up, and it's got good kind of sinister atmosphere before it picks up. Like it's one of those where you can feel it coming and you know what's coming, and the dread is really great. It's a really good one. Yeah, definitely. You two get in touch with each other. Sounds like a good connection there.
Hi.
Oh, thank you, We've got one more sprint to go, another 30-minute one coming up shortly. Great. I mean, I think
done.
writing every day at this point is awesome. Nice. Has he?
Has he really?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I need to dig into this, Ashlyn, because I did not
So
know
I
that.
would like to hear, like, if there's any interviews or anything out there where he's actually defending it. I don't know. I'm not going to
I'd
agree on
say
that
it
one.
sounds to me like, you know, when a teacher makes a mistake on the board and they go,
Yeah.
I put that in there so that you could try and spot it, children, well done. And they try and I wonder if he's just trying to stand by the material, but
At no point am I ever going to defend it. Like, I'm not.
No, it just seems really at odds with the whole book, with everything else I've read that he's written. It's like the one scene that stands out in my head. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to agree with everything Stephen King writes, but that just is so jarring.
Yeah.
I need to find it out. Ashlyn, if you know where that is, please tell us, because me and Elizabeth want to know. I feel like lots of people need to see that. Okay, so it is just gone 9:30 in the UK. So if we do a half-hour sprint, that'll take us to just after 10 o'clock, which seems reasonable. I'm going to have a Kev cameo. He is wearing Christmas pajamas, everyone, so no judgment, please. He's been wearing them since...
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, all year, really. But
Since
since the weather cooled down, they're really nice
Good
warm
pajamas.
pajamas. So, yeah, if you feel free to enjoy. I think that actually, they're kind of the moose. Well, I don't know what the plural of mooses. They're moose. And they've got festive trees on, so they're not super Christmassy.
You'll start wearing yours around your birthday.
Yeah, to be fair, I try and stay fairly closed on the sprints, but at some point I may be succumbing to onesie territory. It is really cold. So yeah, I'm going to bring Kev over to help me with some editing in the next one. Are you going to read in the next one? You're going to wrap up your research?
I've got one more source I've got to check, so I'm going to do that and then wrap it up.
Nice. So hopefully half an hour will be enough for you to do that. And this is last sprint, as I said. So let us know in the comments how you've got on tonight. And I'm just going to change the time to 30 minutes, and then we will catch up with you at the end. So I'm just setting it off, and I'll see you in half an hour. I thought I was ready then, and then I got distracted reading comments, and Key still got me. It happens every time. So that was last sprint. For anybody just joining us, sorry you have missed them. How did you get on, Elizabeth, in that one? Oh, I think you're still muted. Can I unmute you? I think you're still muted, Elizabeth.
I'm still muted.
The joys of technology. Sorry, what were you saying?
I finished up everything I wanted to, so I started fading in the last 10 minutes. So I went and answered some YouTube comments too. I'm done at this point.
Oh, that's great. So in those
Yeah.
sprints, you managed to do everything you wanted to do.
I did.
That's really good. Well, we had some fireworks that sounded like, I can't even describe what it sounded like. It was like repeated explosions outside my window. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard. We could see them firing up really close to our house. And of course, my little boy woke up about 2 minutes later. So I disappeared for a portion of that. I did start working on some questions for Yalc because I'm chairing a panel next weekend. And I'm doing a workshop, so I've got a little bit of work to do on that.
That's exciting, though. That's awesome.
I'm really excited. Yeah, it's lovely to be asked back because I went last year and I was on a panel, and then this year I'm chairing. So I've chaired quite a few things, so I'm not too nervous about that. But it's just making sure that I'm really well prepared because it's important. It's Yalc. It's like a big deal in the UK. So
that's awesome.
Yes,
maybe I'll get over there for one of these days. That would be cool.
That'd be so good. I think you'd love Comic-Con as well. Like, I'm sure you've been to US equivalents, but it's really good. Like the stalls and the, people you can meet. The guests tend to be amazing. I really enjoyed MCM too. That's one that I'm kind of newer to. This one is London Film and Comic-Con. If you ever do come over, I'll hook you up with all the good recommendations, spooky places and conventions to attend. I feel like I can kind of cover it. Oh, so back to Stephen King. Let's see what the gossip is then. Quotes from when the new movies came out, which I suppose is interesting. That's like when people tend to get held to account, don't they? When new versions are coming out, they want to make sure that the source material is still relevant. And of course, parts of that never should have been relevant.
Killer Clown, I think, is on a level that most people can handle, no matter how brutal they are. But that whole scene.
That's the thing with horror, and I struggle with that with fantasy too. It's like you're creating a fantasy world where dragons are flying around, but like women are still inferior. What is that?
Yeah.
So I do have an issue with that because killer clowns. I mean, I know John Wayne Gacy, but like killer clowns that can turn into, spoiler alert, your worst fears and giant creatures, probably not real. So
yeah.
Whereas problematic scenes with teenagers, yes, real.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to dig into that now. I feel like in principle I'm going to find out what he said just so I can, because I always end up bringing this up when I talk about it, that there's a particular scene and probably other bits, I don't know, and I want to know what he said about it now. Oh, Leech keeps coming up.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah, it seems to be like BookTube, Bookstagram, like there's lots of recommendations for this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. I've heard lots of people say that they like it, but I think that pace tends to be an issue for me too, because I read a lot of YA. If I'm reading adult books and the pace isn't there, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, do I put this down or do I try to stick it out,
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on the recommendations for me. Sometimes I'm like, I know lots of people have liked this. I'm going to keep going and see if I can get like the feelings. I mean, maybe he should have just said that. Like, I might have. I think I don't know, not be forgiving of that, but kind of value honesty.
Yeah.
Which, could have been the cause. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that this is some of the forgetting the age of the kids thing. Like, I do wonder, because sometimes when I'm reading YA, I have to age them up in my head just because otherwise it doesn't feel right, like certain scenes and stuff, if that makes sense. So maybe I think it's got to have been some kind of slip. I can't see it being deliberate, but it is interesting, like somebody really digging their heels in and trying to defend that.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed, Ashlyn. 100% agreed.
Yeah.
Hi. You have caught us live. Yeah, you caught us in the middle of a sprint, so we weren't talking at that point. Nice. I hope you're enjoying Take care. Ooh, that sounds good. That sounds amazing. I know all about things being intimidating, Ashlyn. So chat to me this week if you want to talk about the intimidating things we're preparing for. Thank you. It's been so fun.
Thanks,
Thank you
Kat.
everybody for coming on. Nice.
Nice.
661 words, I think, is a good place to end that sprint on. It feels like lots of writing's been happening tonight, which is
Yeah,
great.
that was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that I finally kind of dug into this project that I'm working on and finally get some progress on it.
Me too. It sounds like you know what direction you're going in, which I think some of these things is the hardest part, isn't it? As soon as you know, you can get started and start trying things out. But when you're at that like development stage, you could develop it forever and not actually get there.
Exactly.
But you've got past it. Kev's saying something important I need to say. Oh yes, thank you. And it's opportune to mention this while Ashlyn's there too, because we're reading Ashlyn's book, Big Bad Meat for the YA Book Club. So
Yes.
if anybody hasn't picked it up yet, I would highly recommend it. Elizabeth has confirmed she's going to come on and chat about it with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really excited to reread this book. I read a proof of it way back in the day because it came out around this, I think it was around September last year. So I read a proof earlier that year, so it's been a while. So I'm going to reread this one, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of those where there's been lots of lovely excitement on social media about it. So
yeah, I'm excited about it. I haven't read a good YA sort of monster sort of book in a while.
Yes, this is a good one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to rereading it. So if anybody wants to join us for that, you can get hold of Ashlyn's book in the UK pretty easily, and Ireland, and then internationally. I always recommend Blackwell's now because it seems to be a good place to get free worldwide shipping. Have you found that you've been able to use that, Elizabeth? Like, have you tried
I
it
haven't
out?
actually used it yet, but I have been on the site because I know even some of Alex Bell's, like her new book that just came out, we can't even get it on Kindle right now.
Okay.
So Blackwell's, I think, is going to be a go-to for things that I'm ordering from the UK.
Yeah, we've sent some because I do occasionally send copies of my books to people from. I used to use Book Depository and now Blackwell's, and it does seem to have worked. And the free shipping did seem to be real. Like I sometimes worry that people are going to get stung with like import duties or something.
Yeah.
On the other side, and that hasn't happened. So hopefully Blackwell's is good. So if you want to join in, there should be ways of doing it from all places that Blackwell's delivers to, which seems to be most places. So yeah, I think that's everything I want to say for tonight. So I'm going to sign off there. I'm doing lots of sprints at the moment. I'm writing or prepping for YALT basically every night. So I'm going to be here a few times this week, but definitely Thursday. So come and check it out then. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. As usual, I've had a great time talking to you. I can't wait to listen to your podcast when it comes out. I want to know all about Haunted Canada, definitely. So yeah, hopefully Elizabeth and I will both catch up with you soon. Bye everyone. Thank you.